Mm-mm. We're getting started. We're getting started. All right, all right. I think we're here. Hey everyone, welcome to another week with Donville Collins, CEO President of VCast, Video Productions and Event Technology in White Plains, New York. I'm glad you're tuning into another video this week, and I hope that you've been enjoying these videos that we've been producing and creating and sending you and giving you info and education and everything we can every week. I hope you're enjoying this. If you've been liking these videos, thumbs up on this and let us know. Let us know to keep on doing it. So this week, we're talking about location. You ever heard the term location, location, location? So we're talking about location this week, and specifically, not locations just for your vacation, but primarily this week, we're talking about locations for your video interviews. Those interviews that you're doing when you're doing a branding video, or you're doing a testimonial video, or you're interviewing your CEO, your customers, whatever you have, and you're doing a professional video interview. We're talking about location and the many things and the many mistakes people make, and our suggestions and our guidelines that I can hopefully give it to you in 5-6 minutes. Hopefully I land on that. I don't know if I will. All right. So first thing I'm going to talk about when choosing your locations for video interviews is such a big part, and I think a lot of people really make a mistake on this, is making sure that the room or the exterior, the outside, or wherever you choose, and the location of where you put those people in when you're going to do this video interview has what we call depth. So the first thing that I will talk about is depth. Always make sure that the space that you're choosing has some level of depth. Why? What do I mean by depth? A lot of the times when people are choosing to film or to be on a particular location, they don't think about making sure that there is a level of space that can be established for the people that are watching. Okay, my smartwatch is talking. It's taking up my time. So they're not thinking about what it takes or how people understand. No one, I mean, it's like being claustrophobic. You always need to make sure that you are choosing your location and direction you're also looking in to make sure that there is space. If people kind of feel like it's a little bit claustrophobic, then it's a little bit unpleasant for them to watch this video. And who are we really trying to engage with this video? It's the viewers. I'm trying to engage you. One thing you'll notice here, and even in this video that we do every week, as simple as it is, there's establish of depth. One of the reasons why this door is always open is because I want to establish some level of depth, right? See, now you get it? So there's depth here, and you'll even notice that my hands in front of me is out of focus, and back there is out of focus, and I'm right here. It makes it feel like you have more room. You have a little bit more space to breathe. So that's number one. It gets a little deeper than that, of course, but I'm trying to make this video short. Come on, man. All right, so the next thing I'll talk about is lines. We always are looking, when we go on a location scout, first thing we look for is depth. The second thing we look for is lines. Of course, there's never any hard, fast rule in any particular order, but we just intuitively know because of our years of experience what to look for in a space that will help tell the story that the person who is speaking or being interviewed is trying to tell. So one of the things that we try to do is use lines. You'll notice in this video, even in this that you're watching here, there's use of lines here. Not only are you seeing these lines here that, you know, from the doorway at least, but you're seeing lines in the artwork that's in the background. You're seeing this diagonal line that's on the table. We like to create a sense of, it really speaks to sort of beauty, if you will. If there's some effort of use of lines in your footage, it helps to create depth. It helps to create some level of beauty. Even this room, this is not the prettiest room, but there's things that we do with this room to sort of help that, and I'll get into more of the details to some of the other things I have to talk about, but lines are one of those things. Even this room doesn't use a lot of it, and how we set up this set doesn't use a lot of it, but it's a big part of what we do, and I will, even as we go through more of these videos, I will begin to show you too some of those details, as long as I can keep the video short in future videos. And one thing I forgot to say at the very beginning of this video, we're going to be starting a new series, and this is the first installment of that series called the Video Know-How series. You want to know certain things about how to do certain things in your video production or in your video or something. Maybe you're trying to learn something, or you're trying to know whether or not, you know, you're a person that is learning how to do video. And maybe an intern or somebody's doing certain things right. This, whatever you're trying to learn about video, we're starting a new video series called video know-how. All right, so keep watching, and it will always be saved on YouTube. We're creating a new playlist for it, I just told the guys, as well as you will always be able to find them on Facebook and anywhere you can. So first thing what I said was depth. Second thing was lines. The next thing that we always look for in a location is story. Can the room tell a story that supports what the person who is speaking is trying to accomplish or is trying to convey? Can the room tell a story? So for example, today we've been on a location scout in Mount Vernon, New York. And essentially, when we went there, we were all around this campus looking for different locations for them to do their interviews, a set of interviews that we have set out for a few different shoot dates throughout the remainder of this year. And we were looking for different locations, and the client had already thought about some ideas in their mind of what they felt would be great locations, but then we had to explain to them that why this location wouldn't be good and why this location that we happened to be walking by is a perfect location, but it didn't really register to them. We call this story. Can the room tell a story? So for example, right now, one of the other reasons why I have this door open and why we keep this door open is because it tells you a story. One, obviously, you see this table here. This is a conference room table. I wish I could turn the camera. The guys are busy, so I'm solo today. This table tells you a story that I'm obviously in some kind of conference room. There's a reason why we keep these chairs here. It tells you I'm in a conference room. The door is open because it tells you I'm in a bigger space, and you can see sometimes people walking by and other things happening in the background. The point is, we are a business. We're here, we're doing things. I didn't have to tell you that. See, you always understood that because of the story that is being told in my scene. I'm telling you my story. I'm establishing to you that we're a professional business, operating for some time in a professional space with a staff and team. All of these things in the scene that you're looking at tells that story. If you're telling a story about your business or about your nonprofit, about your organization, the scene needs to help tell the story. For example, today we were in one of the locations that we looked at was an exterior where there was a koi pond and there was a little waterfall. You can hear the water running. We were on an exterior. There was a room that was inside that they thought was a better room, and we saw through the window this exterior. People could come and sit down, and they never had that on their list. And we're like, wait, can we go take a look out there? We go out there. We see the koi pond. We see water falling off, coming down a little waterfall. You could kind of hear the water falling, and there's some trees on the side. And the place, pretty much, it's a, how do I best describe it? Long story short, it's a location where they help to improve people's health. People come there to even senior living and nursery, not nursery. Long story short, it's a location, a place for people to for people to develop and to improve their health, and a lot of that has to do with relaxation. That's the reason why that outside location was built. And essentially, I'm trying to pretty much tell you without telling you who the client is, but essentially, that location that's what it was built for. And we filming testimonials or some different things outside there tells a story of its own that you don't need to tell a viewer when they see you being interviewed in that place. So that's long story short. I think I'm already over 5 or 6 minutes. This is always difficult, but bear with me. We're almost done, kind of. So the next thing I'll talk about is props. If your location doesn't have props that support what you say, then throw it in there. We did a shoot for Jill Singer, Jill Singer's headshot day a few months ago, and one of the people that came in for the interview, they didn't they are a lawyer, they're attorney, and we had told them, look, bring some props, do some things. She particularly didn't bring anything, and she didn't have access to anything, but when she came, we asked her, what are things that kind of represent your brand? And she said now I forget exactly what it's called, but it's the scale that is kind of used in judge and jury, sort of weighing the scales, and if you will. And we said, oh wait, that would be great if we had that in the background. We were in a library, and you know what? We turned around, and it so happened that on top of a shelf that was in that same room, sort of looking dusty, there was a scale on top of like a library of stuff, and we were like, oh, that would be perfect. We climbed up, got that down, put it way in the background. It's out of focus. It doesn't draw attention away from the person who's speaking. However, it says to the people watching that this person has something to do with law. I'm waving this thing at you, but it has something to do with law. So I hope you get that concept. Using props to help tell your story. Now, that is not necessarily location choice, but you need to make sure that where you're going, that there may be some opportunity to do that if it doesn't necessarily have the exact characteristics of already that tells the story that you're trying to tell. So that's another thing. Next thing I'll talk about is dynamics. And by dynamics, I'm referring to things that are in the space that can create some differentiation, that can create some variables within your scene. So what does that mean? If you look at the older videos of these live videos that I did before, you will notice that in the past, the room, of course, had a different color. Right now, I wish I could turn this around. I'll maybe take a shot later and post it on Instagram so you can see what it usually looks like when I'm doing these live videos. The lights, the fluorescent lights that are usually in this conference room are off. There is one of our key lights that we use on productions over there. There is a microphone right here. There's a backlight actually above my head up here. And there's a fill, sort of a fill card, if you will, on the side over here. So essentially, that is one piece. But what you'll notice, one of the reasons why we did all this, you'll notice here that there's some colors in the background. There are 3 LEDs in the background to give this room a purposeful light that is meant to just create some level of we did this on purpose. Why am I doing that? The story and what I'm doing here in this location, because this room is very bland. It's a regular conference room. There's nothing special about it, you know, and we needed something to make it just more interesting to look at and look a little better and a little bit more dynamic. The key word is dynamic. So we put some lights to streak. There's some lights facing up on there on this doorway. You know, the regular color of these lights are kind of like the ones that you see out there, but essentially we wanted in here to be a little different, still show some depth, but in here to be a little different to show you that it was done on purpose, which says what to you without me having to say it? That we do professional production. I could have just made it look more natural, but I wanted you to understand that this is actually a production that was set up just for this video that tells you that we do professional video production here at VCAS. That's a way for me to tell that story without me having to actually say it to you, because a colored light in a conference room obviously doesn't match unless it was a conference room in a club or something. I hope you get that idea and that analogy. So that's that. Next thing, we're almost done. Stay tuned. Stay with me here. Stay with me here. Give me a thumbs up. Is direction. This is a big one, and we see amateurs do this all the time, or people that are learning. They're still amateurs essentially. The big thing that a lot of people do when they don't know any better is they shoot. If you notice when I'm looking at you right now that my back is not parallel with a wall. A lot of people, they make that mistake and shoot with the environment of the room with backs parallel to the wall, and they shoot at the person. You never want to do that. You always want to give, number one, the first thing I said, which is depth, which means that you have to sort of be facing somewhere else. And as well, many times using lines, kind of like is done here. So we're doing at an angle. So by direction, I'm referring to the angle that you're shooting at. Never shoot a person in an interview direct and straight on. Always shoot it at somewhat of an angle. Always incorporate all the other things that I've already mentioned. I'll try to move on. Next thing to consider, really big one. I don't know why I put the big ones last. Maybe it's better to be last. Noise. A lot of the times when someone is choosing location, they're not thinking about noise, the environments, what's in the space. That might be a really big hindrance in terms of sound. So for example, what am I saying? If it's in an office space, make sure that there's not an office next to the room you're filming in that always has a ringing phone. Because if that phone has to be on, has to be ringing, else you might lose money. If it's not ringing, then that's not a good location. That means that you're going to always have noise in your video, and you don't want to do that. Or maybe there's a lunchroom, or maybe there's an activity that's happening at a particular time, you don't want to have a lot of noise in your video that you're going to give your editor a big headache trying to remove it in post, and it's not always completely removable. The other thing to think about is vents, ACs in a room. Sometimes in a room particularly, they're very loud, and if you're not paying or looking for it specifically, you don't realize that it's very loud and you're giving a lot of work to the person doing post to have to remove that. So noise is a big one. And the very last one, this is not necessarily as big of one, but many times, and even in our experience in helping our clients to choose locations, sometimes they just overlook it. And one of those things are distractions. Making sure that many times where we might go on a location scout, if we get to do that, essentially we will choose a location, but they don't tell us that, you know, on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, there's a lot of people that have to pass through here for any particular reason, or, you know, this is the time and this happens. And then when you're trying to do your interview, you're getting emotional, person is talking to you and they want to cry and they're going in, you know. The real thing is then something happens, a bunch of people are coming through, then you got to wait, you have to pause, everybody got to hold and wait for all this action to happen, or we got to walk out, pause the interview to go tell people, can you guys please keep it down, keep it really quiet, we're doing an interview inside here, all of that. Make sure that there are no distractions going to be happening during your production. So you want to make sure that it's an area that is distraction free. There's not a bunch of people that need to ask a question or need to pass through that space for any reason. Trust me, it happens. If you don't plan for it, you waste a lot of time. So those are the key things. We're through it. Yay! Clap, everyone. So essentially, I'll go through it again. Depth, lines, story, props, dynamics, direction or angle, noise, and distractions. These are some of the key things, and I'm sure there's a few other things, but these are a few key things that I noted to share with you to make sure to help you choose great locations for your video interviews. Thank you for watching this video. This is the first installment of the Video Know-How series, and stay tuned. Subscribe on our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere you can find us, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Woohoo! All right, bye.